What happens when a joke cuts so deep it stops being funny? When laughter turns into shock and satire becomes a mirror you can't look away from. South Park has made millions laugh for decades, but the real magic isn't in its punchlines. It's in the pain hiding beneath them. Every now and then, the show delivers a moment so sharp, so brutally honest, that even fans are left sitting in silence. These are the South Park jokes that didn't just land, they hit too hard. Let's start with one of the most haunting examples. You're Getting Old. The episode begins with Stan turning 10, but instead of jokes about growing up, it dives into one of the darkest metaphors the show has ever done. Stan starts seeing and hearing everything as literal crap. Music sounds terrible, food looks disgusting, and life itself turns dull. On the surface, it's funny. Poop jokes, cynicism, and gross visuals. But then the laughter fades. It's a metaphor for depression, for that moment in adulthood when the world loses its magic. When Randy tells Sharon, maybe everything that made us laugh and smile just isn't the same anymore. It's not just a line, it's heartbreak disguised as humor. Fans called it one of the most emotional gut punches in South Park history, because sometimes growing up isn't funny, it's just sad. Then came the death of Eric Cartman. At first glance, it's pure absurdity. The kids ignore Cartman, and he assumes he's died and become a ghost. He spends the episode trying to atone for his sins, confessing every terrible thing he's ever done. It's hilarious watching him go over the top with fake guilt and ghostly drama, but then it hits. Even when Cartman thinks he's doing good, it's still all about him. The joke isn't just about a delusional kid, it's about how narcissism can twist even redemption into selfishness. It's one of those moments where the humor hits close to home, because we all know someone who apologizes just to make themselves feel better. And who could forget with apologies to Jesse Jackson? The episode starts with a classic South Park setup. Stan's dad, Randy, accidentally says a racial slur on national TV. What follows is both hysterical and deeply uncomfortable. The show forces us to sit with the awkwardness of guilt, privilege, and performative apology. Stan tries to understand why people are so angry at his dad, saying, but he said he's sorry. And Token responds, you just don't get it. That single exchange hit harder than most dramas. It turned a simple misunderstanding into a commentary on ignorance, accountability, and the limits of empathy. It's not just a joke, it's a cultural gut check. Next up, Raising the Bar. This episode begins with Honey Boo Boo and ends as one of the most vicious attacks on American culture ever aired on TV. Cartman embraces being overweight, declaring he has body positivity. But instead of mocking fatness, the episode takes aim at how society celebrates laziness and ignorance as entertainment. When James Cameron literally has to dive into the ocean to raise the bar of civilization, it's both hilarious and tragic. The visual absurdity hides a brutal truth. We've all lowered our standards for what's acceptable. The episode made viewers laugh, then immediately made them question what they were laughing at. That's South Park's most dangerous trick, making you part of the joke. And then there's It's a Jersey Thing. What begins as a parody of Jersey Shore turns into an uncomfortable look at prejudice and hysteria. The jokes are outrageous. The exaggerated accents, the fake tans, the chaos. But the underlying message is clear. People always need a new group to hate. What starts as comedy about annoying reality stars becomes commentary on xenophobia and mob mentality. South Park's ability to hide societal critique behind absurd stereotypes is part of its genius, and why some viewers miss the message entirely. One of the hardest hitting moments comes from the Pandemic Special. Released during one of the most chaotic times in modern history, it used absurd humor to capture the frustration, fear, and burnout of real life. Randy's attempt to profit off a pandemic was ridiculous, yet painfully believable. When Stan breaks down and says, I just want my life back, it stopped being a joke. It was the collective voice of everyone watching. South Park somehow managed to turn real despair into dark comedy without losing its humanity. And that's why it hit harder than any headline. Then there's Member Berries. On the surface, it's a clever gag. Tiny grape-like creatures whispering nostalgic phrases like, remember Star Wars, or remember Chewbacca. But the satire runs deep. It's about how nostalgia traps us, How we cling to the past because the present is too uncomfortable. What starts as a running joke about pop culture becomes an eerie warning about politics, populism, and comfort over progress. The episode aired right before one of the most divisive elections in modern history, and suddenly those cute little berries didn't seem so cute anymore. South Park wasn't just predicting trends, it was diagnosing society's addiction to the past. Another punch to the gut came from About Last Night, the episode that aired just one day after the 2008 election. While the world was celebrating or mourning, South Park made everyone the punchline. Obama supporters are portrayed as overly euphoric, McCain supporters as melodramatic wrecks, and the candidates themselves as jewel thieves pulling off a heist. The message: politics is theater, and both sides play the same game. Beneath the comedy was a chilling truth about manipulation and media spectacle. A joke so timely it stung. And then there's Britney's new look, arguably one of the darkest episodes in the show's history. The boys witness the media's obsession with destroying Britney Spears, and the jokes turn into something horrifying. When Britney literally loses half her head but is still forced to perform, it stops being funny. The satire exposes how society chews up its celebrities for entertainment, especially young women. The final scene, the kids realizing the world needs a sacrifice to stay entertained, is one of South Park's coldest moments. It's not comedy anymore, it's horror disguised as truth. But maybe the hardest hit of all came in Put It Down. The episode starts with Tweek having anxiety over world events and Cartman using suicide for attention. Typical South Park madness. But when the music kicks in and the show delivers a musical number about putting down your phone while driving, it shifts. The message, people are dying, we've got to stop ignoring it, lands like a ton of bricks. It's a rare moment where South Park drops the irony and gets serious, and it's devastating precisely because it's surrounded by laughter. Even the show's running gags hit too hard once you look closer. Kenny's deaths, once just a recurring joke, became a metaphor for how desensitized we are to suffering. Cartman's anti-Semitism, exaggerated to cartoonish levels, exposes how easily hate becomes normalized. And Randy's Tegrity Farms, while funny, is a brutal look at greed, hypocrisy, and moral decay disguised as entrepreneurship. Every laugh has a cost, and South Park makes sure we feel it. That's what makes these moments special. They don't just make us laugh, they make us uncomfortable. They force us to confront how ridiculous, cruel, and self-absorbed the world can be. The genius of South Park isn't in its shock value, it's in its honesty. In the end, these are more than just jokes that went too far. They're truth bombs wrapped in laughter. South Park uses comedy like a scalpel, and cutting deep, exposing what hurts, and daring you to laugh anyway. Because sometimes, the hardest hitting joke isn't the one that makes you laugh, it's the one that makes you realize why you're laughing in the first place.